Welcome to Odyssey's Influencer Insights, your go-to place for anything influencers. Let's jump right in. Hey everyone, welcome back to Odyssey's Influencer Insights. Today, I'm very excited to introduce Julia Harris. Julia is a director and editor for commercials, music videos, and brands. We'll dive into her journey from starting in content creation to developing a strong personal brand and learn more about her creative process. So without further ado, Julia, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I want to start and hear a little bit about your background. I saw that you grew up in Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken.
hmm
So I'd love to just bring it back and hear about that to start.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. Um, I lived there until I was 23. And then at that point, I had realized after I'd graduated college that I wanted to take a chance on myself and go after my dreams. So at 23, I moved away from all of my friends and family, and I moved to Los Angeles to go after what I wanted, and now I'm here.
That's awesome. And what first, a couple questions from that. First, I'm going to say why Los Angeles? I know, it's a big city. There's a lot of opportunities, but was it always LA that you knew you wanted to go to, or were there a couple options? Like, what made you go there?
I knew that it was a hub for entertainment and creation, and
Mm-hmm.
the weather wasn't too bad as well. I remember telling my family that I wanted to move to LA, and it came as a shock to them, and they tried to convince me that there would be other places closer to Kentucky, like Nashville, Tennessee, that I could
Mm-hmm.
move to, or Georgia, where there are great tax incentives and reasons to go there. But I had the Hollywood allure beckoning me, and I wanted to follow that. I wasn't totally sure if Los Angeles was going to be the place that did it for me, but I knew I couldn't get it out of my head, and I knew if I came here and it was a disaster, I could move.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to follow my heart. I think that's all we can really do for ourselves is to just listen to our heart, and we're never going to be sure, but you might as well take the chance. Just like how you're going to Asia soon.
Yeah,
You're taking the chance.
exactly. That's amazing. And in that first piece, when you said you always knew you wanted to take a chance before you moved to LA, did you know before that what you wanted to take a chance on was that kind of content creation, creative field, or like were you doing that growing up? Why did you decide to kind of go into that?
So I was a YouTube kid. I was not a famous, or what I say, popular YouTube kid. I have my burner YouTube still, and it probably has like 200 views on the largest video that I've made, but I was just so addicted to it. I remember I knew looking back on it, there is a light bulb moment that I'll never forget. My seventh grade teacher told me and my best friend at the time, he was just like, hey, there's a field trip that you all went on last year. Could you make a packing video for the sixth graders so that they know what to pack on it? And we were like, yeah. So we took her camera and we just made this really silly video of us packing for the trip. And after we recorded all day and had a lot of fun, she took me into her dad's office and we went to his MacBook, or I guess whatever version of the Mac it was then, and opened up iMovie. And when I realized that I was going to be able to move the pieces together to make a video, it just blew my mind. And I knew I was hooked. I was like, this is the best. This is the coolest thing ever. And I still think that. I still think that I get to do the coolest thing ever. And I feel so lucky I can do it every day.
That's so awesome that you're able to do that. And moving from that small girl living in Kentucky doing the YouTube to what you're doing now, how you're saying you're still living that dream, doing the videos. Can you tell us what you're doing now?
Yeah, so it's definitely evolved. And my journey wasn't I was obsessed then, and then I'm still obsessed. It definitely went that I knew that I had this something ignited in me, but I didn't believe I could make that a career. I didn't think it was viable.
Hmm.
I didn't come from a creative family, and I feel like creative careers aren't something that are pushed in the Midwest or the South, unlike they are maybe in cities. In cities, they're like, oh yeah, there are artists here and they live as artists. Growing up, I never thought I could just be an artist or creative, and creators weren't even a thing. I was making videos on Instagram when I was 10 years old, but I was definitely not thinking that the pathway for a creator was something that I would ever find myself. That kind of blows my mind now that there are 10-year-olds that know that they could just be creators. Like, I was
Yeah.
just making videos because I was obsessed. But because of that, I studied to be a doctor when I was in high school. I went pre-med, studied under a radiation oncologist for 100 hours. When I was done with that, I was like, I am not going to be a doctor. That was not something I'm interested in anymore. It was very sad. I respect doctors a lot. But then in college, I studied business with an entrepreneurial pathway. And when I was in college, I just started getting pulled to more and more video projects, eventually establishing my LLC. But even then, I was like, you're not going to do this full time. You are going to move away and you're going to get a real job and a real career because that's what you want to do. And you want to keep yourself safe and your family has sacrificed a lot and you're not going to just be a creative. That's ridiculous. And so I made a goal for myself to hit a certain income amount after I graduated. And if I did, I was like, you're going to have to take yourself seriously. You can't just keep pushing this away. And I way surpassed that goal. And even then, I was like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if I can make a living from it. But then my dad passed, and life changed a lot for me, the meaning of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I am so lucky to know what I'm passionate about. And so many people, are afraid to admit to themselves, which was me, or they don't have a passion, or they don't know what their passion is yet. I think everybody has the potential to have a passion. But if I knew, then I was like, listen, you're gonna have to break everybody's heart. You're gonna have to say that you are a creative because you are, and go for it. And so I did. And that's when I went full time freelance upon graduating after I worked on a TV show. And then I moved to LA, jumped on a full-time job as a in a creative advertising agency.
Mm-hmm.
And then at a certain point, I was 8 months in, and I had never stopped doing freelance when I moved. But when you move somewhere new and you don't know anybody, you're not going to be able to do jobs in freelance because nobody's going to say, hey, stranger on the street, hire you for your job. So it took a little bit to finally, start picking up jobs. And then once I started picking up jobs, then I couldn't stop picking up jobs. And I was like, okay, let's go. And I never would have expected 2 years later to still be here doing freelance. It's a shock
Mm-hmm.
to me, but it's awesome.
Wow. There's a lot of moving parts there, but it's great that it landed back into that creative work. And for that, so for the freelance, can you talk a little bit more about, as someone that maybe doesn't know like what your work is, what exactly was that freelance work?
Yeah, so freelance for me, I would consider myself a freelance creative because I cover video, photo, drone work. I'm taking on strategy at this point as well as a component. I cover festivals. I do creative commercials for brands and businesses, event recaps, and then photos for, everything from editorial to event to people, businesses, their products. It's really exciting. So if you have a creative need, I feel like I've just grown my name as that person, and then we'll have a conversation about what their goals are and if I can align with them and if I can provide value with my services. And then it's just like a normal business. I'll fulfill that service.
You've seen so much success since you started there. And now, like you're saying, you're just getting all these jobs in all these different domains. For someone that's maybe started out like where you were right when you were setting those original goals, what would you tell them? Like how do you grow to the point where you're just constantly getting all these jobs and you're working in all these different domains?
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. I have
Hmm.
I have so much to say on this because I feel like what we see for creators now is such a fluffy, luxurious, like I'm traveling, la la la, and it's just not like that.
Hmm.
You need to have goals at the end of the day and understand the sacrifices that need to be made because it's ultimately your entire life when you're doing this. And it's true, you're not working a 9 to 5, which is beautiful. And it is part of the lifestyle of freedom, but also a lot of self discipline and sacrifices, missing things along the way that people in a 9 to 5, I would like to say, maybe don't necessarily miss as much because when you walk out of the office, you could be done with your job. And for a creator, it's a never ending journey. It
Hmm.
is what you make of it. And as an entrepreneur, that fills me up. I love being able to directly, my input equals my output. It motivates me. But if you are a psycho and you can't get it out of your head, you know that this is what you want to do, at least for the time being, and you want to go after it, have patience with yourself, treat people the right way, always put in the extra effort, um, never cave or throw a foul ball, like we are in a space working people to people, and you need to have integrity for the things that you're doing because at the end of the day, it's not really about the product that you're making. It's about so much more than that. It's about everything else, actually. It's about the relationships that you're making and how your product is helping them. It's definitely a journey. It's not easy at all. But nobody's job is easy. So just pick your poison. Do you want
Hmm.
to do you want to live this entrepreneurial life, or do you want to work a 9 to 5? And stability, some people love stability and they need stability, but for me, if I know I'm doing the same thing 3 days in a week, I kind of get upset.
And so, yeah, it seems like what you're saying, freelancing has a lot of freedom, like what you're saying, but it still does come with its challenges, just like any job. What would you say has been some of the most difficult moments you've noticed with your own business? Like, was there any key challenges that you had that you could think of, and how were you able to overcome them?
There was a there are a lot of difficult moments running your own business and the growing pains that come with it,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're coming into it young. You're more naive and you just make mistakes. You make mistakes about not creating contracts when you should have created a contract, about trusting people too much. You should always treat people the right way, but you need to look out for yourself first
Mm-hmm.
and then treat people the right way. Actually, those things they should work hand in hand, but nobody else is going to look out for yourself except for you. So don't expect other people to look out for your best intentions if you work 10 hours more on a project for somebody because you're like, "No, but we're on this together." No, you're not. And I will probably continue making that mistake because I want to deliver 110% of my efforts to people, but you'll just fall into just, common business errors. Last year I had a particularly big project around this time, um, that was a huge documentary, and I was putting in a lot of work in the pre-production process to get it off the ground, get the funding that we needed, and they were kind of stringing me along to this infamous contract that was going to be signed, and then I would get my initial deposit in that. And, that's a great lesson that I learned, very harsh because I worked on it for a month and I didn't see any money off of that. That's on me, That is a growing pain that I will only make once, hopefully. And move on, just get better from it. But I think everything is a lesson, and so I took that lesson with grace, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely seems like it's it's hard, especially like what you're saying when you're starting young, you're out of school. I guess you, yeah, originally gonna become in the medicine world, and then transitioning from that. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people starting out in business might feel difficulties, maybe imposter syndrome, things like that. How would you say, for people kind of starting out like that, how do you stay motivated and confident, especially as someone that's young?
Yeah, it is a lot of self-love. That
Hmm.
is something that, oh my gosh, you have to push that.
Yeah.
For you to think that you will be successful in this field when no, you know, for most jobs, the client is not going to be like, every revision, "Oh my gosh, this was the best work I've ever seen. I just need a little more tweaks on here." They're just gonna send you the, revision requests until the end where they'll sing your praise, but all the way up until that, you could just be getting
Hmm.
edits and, "This isn't good enough, you're not good enough," all of this stuff all across the board, but you have to believe in yourself more than ever during this time, and you have to do the things that make you feel good, like exercise and good diet. And if you need 8 hours of sleep or you get grumpy, girl, you get you those 8 hours of sleep. You need to set yourself up for success and not just like pedal to the metal, because I've done that and that's what happens to cause burnout. And burnout is very difficult to get out of.
So how do you prevent burnout? By just kind of understanding yourself and your own limitations?
You need to make a list of the things that will make you function the best as a human. And you need to make sure that you're doing them every day. And they're the non negotiable things. So for me, I need 8 hours or I'm going to be grumpy. 7, okay. 6, it's not good. And so that's cutting the other things out of your life. And that is sacrifice to know that, because as an entrepreneur versus if you're going into an office and being told what to do, the entirety of this my success is on my back. Nobody else is going to do those things. If I decide to sleep in a day, then XYZ will not be accomplished, which will put me back in everything that I'm trying to do. So it's really on me, and it's a challenge, and just checking in with myself and saying, are you getting sick? Like, have you been hanging out with your friends still? Like, all of those things have to be penciled in as well proactively, because those are the things that fill me up and make me happy. But then there's all the other things that you need to just run away from, like those extra things, those extra things that aren't necessarily some stuff that you need to do.
Hmm. As you're saying, a lot of moving parts you gotta prioritize, especially when you are running your own business and there's so many things that you're doing. Like you were saying, you're doing the video, photo, all this different type of stuff, for all these different types of clients. And I see you have both that side where it's the freelance, the business side, as well as your own personal brand. You've got your content as well, right? Where you're not necessarily posting for brands, but just for yourself. What role would you say social media plays first in your business? Like, do you leverage social media for your business?
Absolutely. My gosh, social media, I feel like, has kept me in business.
Hmm.
Um, I forget the saying of it, but basically, when you're busy, you will stay busy. And if you're not busy, then you will not be able to find a job. And so it doesn't matter if you are going on to jobs every day, but I'm not showing like the BTS of that, then it's just out of sight, out of mind. But if I'm posting and showing, like, oh, today I did this as a job, then I will get a text and be like, hey, thinking about you. Do you think you could take on this job? It's crazy. Every time I post something, I will probably get a job.
Wow.
It's crazy at this point. I don't really know how that or when that happened, and it's not necessarily jobs that I want to take on anymore,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of jobs now that I understand are not the best. But as you're starting off, you just need to take all the jobs because it's all learning and also money.
And what differentiates a good job from a not so good job?
I mean, budget. Budget
Yeah,
is,
true.
if but also as you keep growing, you start to create a checklist for yourself on the kinds of jobs that you want to take on. And so maybe the budget isn't there, but it's a really interesting concept.
Mhm.
Or it's for a friend and you want to, I feel like I have this passion, I have these talents, and I want to share that with the people that I love. I love doing that, but I can't always do that. It's all, in the scheme of things. This is your life. You can do whatever you want, but if you're not focused on your goals, you won't get them.
Yeah, well said. And still thinking back, that's pretty crazy that pretty much every post you do, you get a job from. So to answer that question, yeah, it really does play a massive role in business. And I'm wondering for someone, obviously I've seen your content, but for someone that maybe is listening but hasn't seen your content, it's very unique and it's really well done and interesting, but
Thank you.
different from maybe what I'd say I've seen elsewhere. I mean, obviously everybody's different, but yeah, for someone that hasn't seen your content, can you explain a little bit about it and what makes it unique?
I don't know. What makes it unique? I mean, I feel like the more videos you do, you kind of just create a style and you start
Hmm.
to blend things. If I've been making videos since I was 10, there are certain things I feel like I return to that I do over and over again. I love some quick chops. I've loved those quick chops for a while. I love
Hmm.
focusing on people and people's faces just like really close to the camera, like this. I
Yeah.
love just, like, really seeing their full face. I love using people that aren't actors and kind of, like, directing them how to act for me. I'm not sure if that's because traditionally I didn't have actors, and now that I'm coming into a space with actors, it's so wonderful to work with them. But I also love to just take normal humans that aren't actors and put them behind a camera, and then they're so, like, "Wow, I look great on camera." And then I'm like, "No, you just look great." Like, that's cool. If that answered your question.
No, it did. Yeah. Because when I asked that question, what I was specifically thinking about was especially like those quick cuts. I think, yeah, I should know it, but there's like one post you did where you're like, if I was doing an ad for this brand. I forget, like Tiffany and Co. Maybe it was,
Yeah,
and then like something
yeah.
like that really stood out to me, and I've seen kind of that style throughout, which I really like.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, for
Thank
anybody
you.
that hasn't seen Julie's content, definitely check out her post, and you'll see what I mean. So um, yeah, it's very cool. What exactly is your approach to video editing like that? Like that type is those quick edits, and
Mhm.
so was that kind of originally your style, or you kind of have a wide variety?
I definitely have a wide variety, depending on the project and the strategy that the brand is looking for.
Hmm.
I always like to work with strategy in mind and insight, which is basically looking at the target audience is that their brand is going after and then backing into their end goals and then combining those things. So if it's for an older audience, I probably wouldn't be using as many quick cuts
Hmm.
because they're not used to that. But for a younger audience, I'll be using more quick cuts. And then for something that's for a spec ad, which is what the Tiffany's ad was, then I'll definitely use quick cuts because that's something that I love and my
Hmm.
style. For I think I get a lot of inspiration from skating videos because I love to skate
Hmm.
and I love that street kind of gritty style. That's something I'm gonna lean into more. I'm just really into it. I feel like I was leaning toward very clean looking film for a while, but now I just feel like that's so attainable for everyone. It was something that was like rare, and then I kept looking at my content on my Canon 77D, which was my first I would say real camera, and I kept being like, why can't I make it look like those videos? And then I realized it was just, the difference between being a 4K, a stronger camera, more pixels, the color grading, just everything to do with the quality. And now that I'm working with a better camera, a Sony a7S III, and really learning about color grading, and I'm achieving a stronger look, now I'm like, I'm here, but I kind of want to go back to something even less, like all the way down in the pendulum. So style is definitely a journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like I mean, they're both obviously great style, but I love that older, grainier look, like you're saying. And
Yeah.
this question I have there is that I saw, as you mentioned, with skating. Skating is obviously a big part of your life as well. I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about that. And like, at what point in your life did you get into skating, and how has that kind of played a role in what you're doing?
Yeah, so I started roller skating as a kid in Kentucky. I was really part of a community there. I would just skate. I remembered my dad would say, "Okay, I'm going grocery shopping," which would mean I would go with him and just skate around the store because it had really smooth surface.
That's awesome.
And so I would probably get kicked out, but when I moved out here, I only knew 2 people. I didn't really have that many friends, but I really wanted to go skating on my birthday in Santa Monica
Hmm.
because I loved skating. So I took one of the 2 people I knew. She came with me to go skating. And while I was skating that day, this group came by, the LA Skate Honeys, and they gave me a sticker and they said, "Join us." And I was like, oh my gosh, they want me to join them? And then that skate group became my first community in LA. And having a community in a huge city is so important, especially because that community didn't really care or know about the entertainment industry as a whole. Some of them are definitely in it, but when I go skating with them, it's not like, what projects are you working on? Or, who are you working with? It's more like, you get some new wheels? Or you want to learn this trick with me? And I love that. I love being a part of that community. Such a good way to exercise, body, mind, spirit. And at this point, I'm frankly addicted. So my friend Jen, who runs the Skate Honeys, she got me on rollerblades, and now I skate almost every day.
Nice. And for roller skating, is that like, do you go to skate parks, or is that more like you're on the boulevard and stuff, like skating up and down? Like, because I grew up skateboarding, so um,
I-
I kind of understand the world a little bit, but I guess from a different sport. So I'm just curious to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, one, you gotta come out and skate in Santa Monica
Yeah.
because it is the best place to skate. I hot take, but rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding in Santa Monica slash Venice, mostly Venice, is the best thing you can do in Los Angeles. I'll put my name on it.
Yeah. No, I
It is.
mean, that makes sense. It's too bad I've never skated there. I did go to I guess it's called the Venice skate park, like the famous skate park on the beach. But I
Yeah.
didn't have my board when I was there, which was very disappointing. So I just like went there and watched everybody else skateboarding, thinking that I wish I had my skateboard. But I mean, yeah, beautiful weather, great place to do it. It seems like an awesome community. And then in terms of the community, I see that you also created your own community, I guess different from the skating. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but the Femme Creatives.
Femme creatives, yeah.
Femme Creatives, yeah. So you created that as well, right?
Yes. I co-founded that with Elena Booth.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a little bit about that? Because that's a whole different world, I guess, right?
Yeah, so Elena and I were both freelancers last year, and we got lunch in January, and we both just talked about being a freelancer, which kind of led into the conversation about being a lady freelancer. And in a male dominated space, it was interesting to hear about our trials and tribulations and what we had faced and the differences between our male counterparts who don't face that, and also after talking to my guy friends, I realized don't necessarily understand that it's something that lady creators face. But through our conversation, we were basically like, there has to be others out there. Where are they? And then we were like, let's start a group about it. And so it was inspired by the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, who's the COO of Facebook. She created
Mm.
Lean In to talk about in leadership roles and the importance of aspiring women to take on leadership roles and then having that effect trickle down to everybody else. And we have a spin on it to make it a creative group because we are creatives. And so that we started that in February of 2023. So we're coming up to a year. We have our biggest event yet coming up December 3rd, which is going to be very exciting. 60 people are supposed to show out to it, and we're going to be making vision boards. We are partnering with the LA Skate Honeys, and it should be a great time to introduce more women to the world and just get the conversation flowing about their career goals and encouraging to go after them.
That's amazing, and congrats on a year and the big things that you got going in the future.
Thank you.
And what's that been like creating that community from scratch?
Yeah, it's been for the most part just green lights. Every meeting we go into, we come out and we're just I mean, one, it's always a good sign when people are hanging after a meeting for
Hmm.
almost an hour. We usually have to eventually say, "Okay, guys, we really don't want to kick you out, but we have to give this space back to, wherever the space we're using from." That's been awesome. I've worked with a lot of women from within the group on outside things, and most of the women in the group have worked with somebody in the group outside of the group as well on their own creative projects. And that was the entire goal, was to just encourage that. I feel like in a male dominated space, it's so much easier for any of us, especially Elena and I. We would be like, if we're trying to crew up, it's so much easier for me to call, one of my guy friends and say, "Hey, could you DP? Could you direct,
Hmm.
produce, whatever it is?" Because I know that they're out there. But there are women out there as well. So we're just using this as a magnet to get all the women together to work with each other. Thank
That's
you.
that's incredible. Moving a little bit away, there was another topic that I was interested to hear your opinion. I saw on your social media you touched on, I can't exactly remember what the post was, but you mentioned something about utilizing ChatGPT or AI, and I'm curious to hear your opinion, someone in the creative field, what you think of ChatGPT. Is obviously over the last year or so it's became a tool that pretty much everyone uses. Your opinions and how you've been able to leverage that in your creative world.
Yeah, so ChatGPT is definitely a hot topic, but I'm on the team full send. I don't really think that we have the ability to stop something already in motion.
Hmm.
And this thing is in motion. So I'm like, hop on the boat or be left by the ship.
Yeah.
One of those things. And I know that is going to spark some controversy. And I'm not saying we should use it unethically. I think we should all learn it and adapt it into what we're already using. And I'm thankful for it as somebody that is running their own business. And I have been running my own business since I was 22 years old. I would not be able to do this without technology. It's something I think about actively. And I'm not just saying chat GPT. I think about my mom being my age. If I wasn't able to take meetings on the run like Zoom or check my email on my phone, I would not be able to be living the same reality I am now. As like, traveling around and doing all this stuff and still able to attend to my business. So in that same way, we should think about ChatGPT as a way to expand ourselves. I don't have the means to hire a strategist. ChatGPT is my strategist.
Hmm.
I don't have the means to hire a project manager. And in fact, logistics and project management is my bottleneck. I can see that, and that is even after working as a project coordinator for a major advertising agency, coordinating projects for, DreamWorks, MGM, and Sony. Learned so much from that position, and I took that position to learn. And I'm still just like, no, you are a creative. And anything else that you do that moves my energy away from being a creative is only inhibiting me from blossoming. Therefore, using a tool as ChatGPT and taking out all of my projects that I'm trying to achieve by the set dates and typing in ChatGPT, be my project manager. I need this project to be done by this date. ChatGPT will spit out from today to that date what I need to do on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and it'll even say, "Would you like me to check in with you on these meetings?" And for
Hmm.
that, I'm like, "Okay,
Wow.
ChatGPT, chill. Let's calm down. No, I don't want you checking in on me, but maybe later, you know? You get to make what you want out of it."
Yeah. That's incredible to hear how a resource like ChatGPT has pretty much been able to help you with, let's say you don't have employees, like you're saying, for certain areas of your business, you can pretty much utilize that tool to be those employees so that you're able to focus on other areas and have that help you. So,
Yeah, and it's not taking
yeah.
away jobs because I would, as an individual, never be able to hire on those positions to begin with.
Hmm.
Those jobs didn't exist, they would have never existed. But me growing in a business can grow me to a place that I'm making so much money that I can hire on permanent full-time employees, therefore employing humans
Hmm. Yeah.
quicker than possibly without ChatGPT.
Very true. And a follow-up question I have, and I don't expect, or like you don't have to have an answer for this because I sure don't, but I'm just curious how you think, based off, yeah, in the last year or so, ChatGPT has obviously been a huge disruptor. In the future, have you thought about how you think AI software could influence the creative world, whether that be ChatGPT, something down the line that we haven't even seen, and how that could affect content creation, video, and anything in that world?
Yeah, I mean, it's already happened in the
Hmm.
ethers timeline, it has influenced it,
Yeah, for sure.
in the same way that when I was making videos at 10 and putting them on Instagram and I didn't even know that a content creating job would exist,
Hmm.
it's the same way that we have no idea what is gonna happen in the future. So, something to look at, is Sora, definitely, which is on my Instagram, I talked about Dolly, which is
Hmm.
ChatGPT's
Yeah.
text to photo. Sora is text to video. And we have a lot of variations of that already exist. We're seeing documentaries that were fully made out of AI. We're seeing music videos. They all have their little quirks on them, like the hands aren't right or the basketballs are doing weird things going into the basket because it doesn't understand gravity yet. But there's still going to have to be humans that are leading those forces, and again it's going to be used as a tool. Maybe we won't have to go to a location and film establishing shots because we can get establishing shots using tools online, which we are already kind of doing. And that will take away those crews, but also there are going to be so many more media sources that those crews wouldn't have existed in the same capacity.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like we need to just understand that it's moving and evolving and hop on it and learn it to the best of our ability.
I love that. Yeah, and it's good to hear as well that you don't think that it's gonna take away jobs in the creative field, because obviously we don't want that, but it seems that it can be, if you hop on the wagon, as you're saying, it can be a tremendous tool to help people in that area just do better at their jobs. So,
Is going to take away jobs in the creative field. I think it is going to take away jobs, but also there are jobs that don't exist yet that are going to be made. And I don't think it's going to be an equal trade. I think, we all have to pivot. If you want to be a creator, you have to be able to pivot. We are
hmm.
constantly, if you were learning how to be the best Photoshop retoucher 5 years ago, because that was something that we really needed. Photoshop and Lightroom have the most insane AI plugins now that are, kind of doing retouching by themselves with the click of a button. But
Wow.
it's a slow burn, start to pivot. I feel like differentiating your services is a really great way as a creative to still be a creative. I think being a creative, it's a privilege. It is really a privilege. It's not something that's certain. If you want to be paid to be a creative, then you need to be able to pivot. If you want to just be a creative and not get paid and do another job to support your creativity, that's something else. But that might be a hot take as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting world, and I guess like you're saying, because I assume there are people that they're getting into the creative space or they want to, but they might be a little worried or hesitant based off, how much it is disrupting. So I guess would you say for those people that are kind of scared about the effect it could have, just being aware and being always on the look for pivoting, and there still will be opportunities, but you just gotta see how things evolve.
It just depends on what you want your life to look like. If you want stability and um that you want a house at this age and you want to get married and you want to be able to attend all the birthday parties, then being a creative might not necessarily be the path for you.
Hmm.
If you don't mind a life of instability and more fun perhaps and a lot of different opportunities coming at you every day. Already in this job, something that you need is the ability to learn over and over and over again, to learn new things. I learn new things every day. There isn't a day that I'm not teaching myself how to do something. And so if you don't have that, you will not be able to be a creator. If you do have that, you will be able to survive in this turbulent time as a creator.
Hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I I agree with what you're saying for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's scary, and I guess the unknown can be scary, but like what you're saying, yeah, I guess you gotta pick your poison. You can, if you love creative jobs, you should go into that, but understand that, yeah, if you want these certain goals, like you're saying, house, car, etc., maybe it's going to be a little hard to do that well doing that creative or entrepreneurship piece, because it does take up more of your life than maybe a 9 to 5, because you're running the show. So I guess it just really depends on what your goals are, who you are as a person, what you want to be, what you want to do. To bring it back to your work, I saw as well, obviously, you've done a lot of different collaborations with your work with brands, but a couple that stuck out to me that I saw is you work with Netflix, Canon, AT&T. These are massive companies, like some of the biggest for sure, to have on your portfolio. How, like, what's the story with those? How did you land that clients? What was that like?
Yeah, so um for each of those capacities, I was on the crew. So I was serving as a crew member for Netflix. I worked on the show Full Swing. Are you
Hmm.
familiar with it?
Wait, is that I'm definitely familiar. Is that the golf one?
Yeah.
Okay, I've watched that. Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to say
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. So that's just through networking. I was PAing for a while for this one company, and they get kept calling me back for different gigs. And then I eventually started ACing, which
Hmm.
is assistant camera. And then I started doing some DIT work, which is a digital imaging technician, which means you organize the files and catalog them, and then you make sure that they get to the people they need to get to.
Hmm.
And when you're working with, DIT is a very important job. You need to make sure your data is safe. But yeah, as I was rising the ranks, I kept getting calls for different shows, and then it finally was for Full Swing. So I worked with them on the US Open and the genesis. Basically, any coverage that was in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
I would
Yeah.
go. And we're still actually, we just finished season 3. So that's super exciting to have that. We just finished shooting season 3. I have no idea when their editing is gonna. I'm not involved with the post production for
Hmm.
that. Yeah, crazy
Yeah,
ride.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And for Full Swing, when the ones in LA were like, what exactly were you doing for Full Swing?
So I was an assistant camera for Full Swing
Okay.
and DIT.
And so were you with that job, were you on the course with the players or what? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty
Wow.
crazy. So Full Swing is a docu-style show, which
Hmm.
is something that I definitely feel like my style has evolved into, just shooting real people. But for that show, it's a very small crew because we're shooting people that are not actors and we're
Hmm.
shooting
True.
professional sportsmen, doing something that they don't necessarily they're fine with us shooting them, but it's not like their main pro, prerogative. It's not their main agenda to have us shooting them. So it's almost like we're on a safari and we're just
Hmm.
like, we're like, Tiger Woods is over there. Okay, this crew needs to go over there. This crew needs to be over there. And
Hmm.
then we have the DP, the director of photography, is also the director because since it's docu-style, they have to have a full understanding of the show and each person is on a player. So we split up into teams and then we just like chase them on the course.
Wow.
So it's just like me and the DP and we're just like,
So because like what you're saying, these aren't actors, these are professional athletes. With an actor, I assume in those roles you'd be talking to them, getting them to be like in a certain place like that. Do you ever communicate with the players, or you just kind of let them do their thing and then you just shoot them while they do their thing?
yeah, so for the courses, we're trying to be as least intrusive as possible. We
Hmm.
do the audio guy is probably the person that interacts with them the most because he needs to mic them up and make sure that like the mic stays on them in a proper place, but they're in the zone. We want to just like literally observe them, and also since it's docu style, we are not interacting with the story. We're not saying, unlike reality TV. This is reality TV, but it's reality TV that they have very high stakes, and we do not want to get involved with them losing their goals. A different way that we would be more interactive with them is when we're off the course, so not during one of the, major games, and it's just an interview with the player, like one on one, which is also just like story filler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
That's
was, it
that's
was,
that's crazy though.
yeah,
For
it was a
anybody
great.
that is a little lost right now, if you're listening and haven't watched this, definitely do. I used to honestly be kind of like not the biggest golf fan, but now I do really like golf, and I feel like this. I'm still not great, but I do enjoy it, and I feel like this show helped kind of me start to like golf. So even
Oh,
if you're not that into golf, it's just such a interesting show, extremely well made, great cam work all the way through. So that's awesome.
yeah, hoping for season 4.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
But
watch season 3 so we can get season 4, guys. Watch season
hmm
3.
we will. I'm excited for that to be out. And
Yeah.
then so with those other two, with Canon and so with Canon as well, you're part of the crew where you're doing the
Yeah,
camera work.
so Jay brought me on as I was a PA and I did BTS photo and video for
Okay.
his What If film. I know you talked to Jay already,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jay,
So that was
small world. It's funny. I'm connecting now with all the LA creatives slowly but surely. So that's
yeah.
awesome. You guys did work together.
No, he's such a inspiration for me. Seeing him see that project through from start to finish on a story that spoke so deeply to his heart
Hmm.
was just it's so inspiring, Being around people that inspire you is also one of the only ways that you can do any of this stuff because you all are all thinking of impossible, seemingly impossible lofty goals. But if you surround yourself that all have those seemingly impossible lofty goals together, then you're just gonna you're gonna make them.
Hmm. Very true. And then the last out of those three that I brought up, AT&T. What was that like?
Yeah, so AT&T, I was also a second. I was a assistant camera for that. So AT&T was a very big crew though. Yeah, it was full production, partnered with a creative agency. Yeah, fulfilled their need on the production and just worked with the DP to make sure that they had, everything they needed to be successful and that.
And a question I have there is, especially, I mean, at Canon, I guess you had connections with Jay, but especially for Netflix and AT&T, like how did you even get those roles? Because those are like some of the biggest companies in the world. Is that mostly through connections? Because it seems like networking is definitely a huge piece of this business, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so when I moved, I only knew two people, and it's just from every job that you get, giving 110% effort, doing the right thing, showing up on time. You know, if somebody tells you to do something and you're like how you do one thing is going to be how you do everything. And so just showing up on like beginning jobs as you bump into LA, you're going to get your first job and it's like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be the lowest job possible." You're going to be a PA and you're going to be schlepping stuff around and carrying stuff and getting coffee, but if you're adding value to the crew, you're going to get a job from that crew. And you're gonna get a job from the next crew, and you're gonna keep just moving up crew to crew to crew. So all the jobs that I've ever gotten is just like from my original people that I've met in LA and just like grown from there, which is how everything works. So just be a decent person, do the right thing, be kind, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's great advice, and it's remarkable that you were able to move from Kentucky across the United States to LA, know two people, and then now with all the different people you met, work for such a wide variety of companies, successful business. I mean, it's congrats. Yeah, that's
Thank
something that
you.
not everybody could do.
Thank you.
And another thing I saw you're doing is you're doing an annual video diary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm curious what that's like because yeah, I saw you're doing that and it was just something that interested me. Is that something that you've been doing for a while?
Yeah, so I was inspired by the Vogue questions that they do for Billie Eilish.
Hmm,
Because I love Billie, stand with her. They interview her every year the same day on Vogue.
that's awesome.
And I was like, if Billie Eilish is being interviewed by Vogue, then I'm going to interview myself. That was just the logic there. And
Yeah.
so I started right before I moved. And it's so cute. The video is so little. So I've only been doing it for, this will be my third year doing it. Yeah, that's how it works.
So you do once a year,
Mm.
um, record yourself, and what's that like?
Yeah, so I have a list of questions that I made for the first one, and I have to ask the same questions every time.
I see.
I add a question every year. This year, I'm going to add what's one thing that you want to change about yourself so that I can have like a reflective question in that.
Hmm.
The one thing I want to change about myself is I want to talk less because I feel like, especially if I'm caffeinated, I'm like, please, please, so much better. But I think that's with growth and maturity. Hopefully that will come. Yeah, but it's just basic. I'm supposed to wear my favorite outfit that year, and I'm supposed to interview myself in um, my space, and I'm supposed to set it up to the highest production value that I know at that time.
Hmm.
So I have some rules for this setup, and I talk about everything from the biggest project that I've done that year, what I'm the most proud of, and like my favorite music. It's a personal diary, but I might share it at some point, maybe splicing some sections together to serve as, inspiration in the
Hmm.
future.
Have you shared parts of it? Because I saw at least some aspect of it on your social media,
I
right? But
shared I shared one clip. I
One
shared one
clip.
clip of it because I found it, and I'm not gonna lie, I lost one of the videos. I didn't lose it, I just didn't upload it to my drive, and I'm like, "Where is it?" So that's a mission right now. I actually have I don't even wanna show you how many hard drives I have, but I have all the hard drives that I'm like, "You have to find it because this is important," you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's a great tradition to do.
Thank you.
So I've got one last question for you.
Mhm.
Um, and so you asked me before you started recording about my kind of future goals, what I'm
Yeah.
hoping to do with Odyssey with the podcast. So I wanted to flip it to you and
Mhm.
hear what your goals are for your business, for your social media, for everything that you do in your creative space, maybe in the next year, maybe in the next 5 years, like whatever you've thought, and just hear about that.
Yeah, wow, about everything. Well, I don't think I can give you all of my
No, no,
goals.
whatever you want to share.
I definitely have always been in a growth mindset for the sake of passion. I love what I do. And when you continue growing, you continue working with more passionate people and better people and people that are just at the top of their game, whether that's the person that's on the other side of the camera that I have the privilege of shooting and editing and making a great piece of content for them, or whether it's the people that I get to work beside or under or hire. That really excites me to just continue growing for the sake of understanding the world better and just for the fun of it. I love it so much. And, I hope that money comes with that. I hope that a higher quality of life for myself and to be able to expand my business comes with that. But I assume that is going to be something that continues growing because I haven't seen that not continue growing with my efforts so far. So as long as I keep my intentions correct and my heart is in the right place, I feel like it's all gonna everything that I want will come toward to me.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Julia.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, where can our viewers find you online? What are your social handles?
My social handle is underscore underscore Julia Harris underscore underscore. And that's on Instagram. So everything else on my Instagram, I have my link tree, my website, and my YouTube is on there as well. Check it out.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much for this conversation. Thank you for joining me today. This was very interesting and inspiring to hear about everything that you've been doing, you're doing, and will do. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And for anybody that's watching, thanks for tuning in. Go check out Julia on all her platforms. Say hi, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.